All right, now today's session is creative finance. Okay, I'm going to start giving you examples on my deals. Okay, so this is one of the hotels that we did. Okay, it was in the market initially at 350. Okay, I managed to get it at 220. I've shared this previously a few times. It came in the market, someone else took it. They could not complete because they couldn't raise finance. It came back in the market. I went in, proposed 220. It was accepted. But even at 220, I didn't have any money of my own in that moment when I agreed. Okay. So what I did was I, I found a partner who I gave the deal to at 250, right? So I made 30 grand sourcing fee, right? I got 30 grand in share value. Okay. So I needed to raise 110 grand. Remember, it was 220. It was 110 grand that I need to raise. I got 30 grand in sourcing fee, as in share value. So I needed to raise about 80 grand in total. I went and found an investor, raised money from the investor, and then eventually paid him back. I managed to acquire a full 50% of a hotel for zero of my own money. And that hotel is worth today £500,000. Okay. Clever little trick, 30 grand sourcing fee in share value. And I went and borrowed the rest of the money, which I was literally managed to pay back in 6 months. Okay. And this was through all the income sources that I had at that moment. Okay. So literally 6 months down the line, I actually owned 50% of the hotel with literally, when I agreed, zero of my own money. Okay. Where very same formula, purchase price 535, I've added 15 grand sourcing fee in the form of share value, allowing me to pay reduced money towards my deposit in the 50% share that I'm buying. Same structure. Okay. So imagine I managed to make 45 grand in sourcing fee, buying 2 commercial properties and paying lesser deposit than what I would have necessarily. And I would be able to pull out all of this money when we refinance, because I'm not adding just value in terms of bringing the deal on the table, but also by adding more value and refinancing. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you know what I mean. Yeah. Now, another one that we did was, this deal came to me through someone, luckily. Not normally doesn't happen, more like an anomaly, right? It came to me through someone. It was a 6-bed HMO in Romford. It came to us at 240. Squatters in the property in really bad condition, really run down. It came to us at 240. The seller was prepared to pay 2% like seller's fee as well, agency fees as well. So we were going to get £4,800 as the selling fee, state agency fee. We took that deal and we went to an investor who paid us 260 for it. So 20 grand overage. We managed to get 20 grand overage plus the 4,800, making 24,800 pounds from a single deal. Okay. At the same time, the person who bought that spent 40 grand on it. So cost to him was 260 plus stamp duty and so on. He spent another 40 grand on it. That's a little over 300 grand, let's say 310 grand. The property is now worth 600 grand. Good deal? Yeah? Now, I can share with you a few more, but I'm going to take you back to the creative finance side on how you can structure your deals, allowing you to sometimes use, well, none of your own money and sometimes very little of your own money. Okay? Another one that we did was where we took an option agreement. We only paid £1. Delayed completion 24 months later. It was a really large detached house. Eventual agreed price 1.1 million. Okay, I've shared this many times, but I'll share it just so it's recorded in the video and everyone can watch it. Eventual agreed price 1.1 million. We went and got the planning permission for 8 units, that's 6 flats and 2 semis. We managed to sell the option without exercising the option for 1.7 million, making a 600 grand profit by investing only 20 grand between legals, architects, and planners. Okay. Now, for me to be able to structure deals like that, give me an example of a random deal that you've ever come across that you could not get finance on. So I'll help you structure it. Anyone wants to do it? Punit, do you want to do it?
I don't know. I don't know if I've got any deals.
All right.
The
Okay.
ones I've seen so far just haven't stacked. So when they don't stack, you're not going to get the finance.
Yeah, so when they don't stack, it's never a good idea, just so you can find a creative way to finance it. Okay, that doesn't quite work.
No,
In fact,
exactly.
okay, let me share with you another one. Okay, so this is, in fact, I was involved in the deal. I was a broker. I did the debt as well as the equity, and then somehow the deal went south. So there was lots of problems with it. Right? Let me share with you what happened. Okay, so someone approached me saying, I'm looking at this deal, purchase price 1.65 million, development cost roughly about 2.2, 2.3, roughly just getting to about 4 million, shy of 4 million. And I'm only owed 150 grand. Okay. So I said, okay, let me try and find your investor, which I did. I managed to raise the guy almost 5 million pound between debt and equity. Okay. So the debt was just, I think it was like 1.6, 1.7 million debt. Sorry, 1.6, 1.7 million equity. And then I managed to raise him 2.2, 2.3 roughly of debt, right? And the GDP was a little over 6 million. Okay. So good deal, everything done really well. Eventually, the reason deal went south was because the developer turned out to be dishonest. Okay. But he managed to get the deal done of a 6 million GDV only with 150 grand of his own money. Okay, raise your hand if you see where I'm going with this, right? Let me see your faces. Let me see your hands, guys. Okay. So with 150 grand, he managed to do a GDV 6 million pound deal. There was roughly about 1.5, 1.6 million profits, which, like I said, because he turned out to be dishonest, deal went quite bad. I even got paid partially. I'm yet to get paid fully. We are taking him to court for the bill that he hasn't paid. My bill is at 76. Okay. So, but it's really about structuring the deal. Exactly the reason, to go back a step, exactly the reason when I now get involved into equity part of the deal, we normally tend to control the deal by becoming senior project managers and controlling all the money aspect of the deal. Okay. So I only get involved when I bring equity, when I am taking a percentage from the project and I'm a senior project manager. Okay. Otherwise, I don't get involved in equity part of the deal. I'll do the debt for anyone who wants it, but I will not do equity for anyone without it. Okay. So I'll be the one fully controlling the deal. So that's how it's structured. Okay. Now, if I was to take you a step back, right? When you look at your mortgages, when you look at your development finance, when you look at your bridge loans, right? Every single one of them is all creative finance. Okay. Now, what do I mean by creative finance here? So you can see through. Let's say I come to Ahmed, and let's say Ahmed is a bank. Okay. And Ahmed says to me, you know what? I've got £1 billion sitting around. I'm going to give it to you for 4%. Okay. 4% per annum. Okay. I have a list of clients lined up who will pay me 8%. Okay. I take money from Ahmed at 4% per annum. I'm giving the money to someone else at 8% per annum. Okay. That's called arbitrage. Okay. And I'm doing this at the scale of £1 billion. Does that make sense? I'm doubling my money, guys, because I'm only paying M at 4% and I'm giving the money at 8%. I'm borrowing 1 billion and I'm making 2 billion. Does that make sense? Let me take you a step further. Okay.
Is that even legal?
That's exactly what happens, Grace, when you borrow money from anyone. So when you take a mortgage, what is that money? Tell me. That's exactly what's happening behind the scene, Grace. Okay. So you get money at 5%. These guys are only paying 1 or 2%. They are doubling, tripling their money, just giving you money, you and me including. Okay.
Jack, just a question. When you I think previously you've mentioned when trying to stack a deal in terms of financing to always assume 10%
Cost.
to cost
Yes.
for cash, even if it is your own cash, just to plug in 10%.
Exactly, yeah.
But now you're saying, I mean, there's some people that you could get to that at 4% or.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That was just an example.
Oh, okay.
No, you can't borrow money from private investors for less than anywhere between 6 to 24%. Okay.
Per annum.
So yeah, so if you come to me and say, Jack, I want money from you, as in my money, you're looking at 30% per annum. I won't give you the money because I can make that kind of money myself. Okay, so why would I give money to someone less than 30%? I do know investors who will give at 6% because they're still new, okay, or they just trust the process with me and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you are looking at anywhere between 6 to 24, 30%. Okay.
Yeah.
Taking you another step further, okay, and I'm going to come to kinds of deals and how you can structure them as well. Okay, taking you a step further, right? When you borrow money from banks, okay, that money is practically not physical money. It's just a number in a bank account. Okay, that money, as in the number, has been borrowed from the Bank of England. Okay, so let's say open a bank. I go to Bank of England and say, I want to borrow money. I borrow money from Bank of England, okay, or from any other source, okay. It comes in my account, but there's no physical money involved, right? All it does is it shows a number in my account. I give that number in your account. Let's say you're now the borrower. I'm a bank. I borrowed money from Bank of England or from any other source. I then lend it to you, Grace. If you observe, there's no physical money involved. Now, as a borrower, not just that they're doubling their money on no physical money. It's just imaginary money. Raise your hand if you see what I'm saying and you understand what I mean. There is no physical money, guys. It's getting transferred from a lender to a bank, from a bank to a client, and every one of them is doubling their money on you and me, while there's no physical money involved. It's just going from one bank to another bank, just in digits. There's no physical money. Talking about legal, Grace. They are doubling their money on you and me on imaginary money. Let that sink in.
I understand that part. I understand that. Okay, carry on anyway. Carry on.
Okay.
If I have
all right. Okay. So this is what you call the layers of your finance, right? It goes from the lending institutions to the banks and to the borrowers, which is us. And every single one of them is doubling, tripling their money, quadrupling their money on imaginary money, and so on and so forth. Taking this back to how do you structure different kinds of deals, right? Let's say you go to auction. Bad practice, don't go to auction unless you're a really seasoned investor. Do not walk into an auction. But let's say you do go and buy into auction, right? You need to pay 10% immediately and then 90% within 28 days, or depending on the auction. Old style auction, 28 days, new style auction, it can be 2 months, 3 months, you need to pay the rest of the 90%, right? Let's say you buy something that's worth 100, okay? You've paid, let's say 10 grand day one, 10%. How do you structure a deal like this? Okay. Let's say you come to me and say, well, Jack, I need some money. How do I can get you 65% of the purchase price day one net. So you only need 35% of as now let's say the deal is really profitable. Okay, let's say you are buying the deal at 100, you can invest 50 on it as just the refurb money, and the deal is going to be what, 250. Okay, so there's enough profit margins as a core deal. Sorry, as a core deal. In that case, I can get you as a debt up to 80% of the total cost, as in 80% of the 150. Does that make sense? Raise your hand. And if, let's say, you turn up and say, well, I don't even have the 20% of the 150, I've got a really bad throat. If, let's say, you turn up and say, well, I don't have even the 20% of the 80, 20% of the deal on the 150, which is 30, I can even in some cases help you raise equity. Not in all cases, only in some cases, I can help you raise equity. So you would only need anywhere between 2 to 5%. Okay, as long as the deal stacks in numbers. I said purchase price 100, refurb cost 50, and the end value is at least 250. Okay, if your end value is only 200, the likely is I can't help you raise equity. You're going to need your own equity. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's say now when you look at a development deal, okay, or a conversion deal, they're both very similar in nature. Let's say it's a development deal, okay? Let's say the purchase or development deal or conversion deal. Let's say the purchase price is 1 million. Let's say the development and the conversion cost is another 1 million. Okay? You turn up and say, well, Jack, it needs 2 million. I only have 50,000 pounds. Okay? I don't have any more than 50,000 pounds. The deal needs 2 million pounds. Okay? I can get you the rest of the 1.95 million as long as the GDV is 3 million. Raise your hand if you see where I'm going with this. I did not say 2.5 million, because if your GDV is at 2.5 million, I can only get you debt. The debt on the 2 million is going to be no more than 1.6 million, so you're going to need 400 grand of your own money. Okay? But if your GDV is, let's say now 3 million, I can get you debt up to about 1.95 million. So you would only need about 50 grand of your own money. If you don't have 50 grand of your own money, only God bless you. Okay? Not a lot of people can help you in that case. In that case, if let's say you don't have 50 grand and you stand up to me and say, can you help me? In that case, even though the deal may be yours, but you would just be an employee on the project and not a shareholder. Does that make sense? You'll be able to charge a sourcing fee. You'll be able to become a project manager, but you'll not be a shareholder. You'll practically be an employee. You may even get a percentage of the small profits, maybe 10, 15%, but in essence, you will just be an employee of the project. Okay? Raise your hand if you see where I'm going with this, right? So let's say you turn up and say 2 million project or 20 million project, but it really stacks at, 30, like let's say it's a 20 million rand project and the GDV is 30 million and I have zero of my own money. Fine, we'll take the deal on, we'll bring the debt, we'll bring the equity, we'll bring everything for you, but you're practically an employee. You can charge your sourcing fee. You might get a small percentage of the profits, probably more in the region of 10% and no more, depending on the performance of the project. And we can potentially get you all the money, but you'll literally be an employee. Okay, but if you have a little bit of your own money, anywhere between 2 to 5%, then you can practically be a real shareholder in the project and actually enjoy a lot more profits. Okay. Looking at different kinds of deals, I've just shared with you auction deals. I've shared with you development deals and conversion deals. right? I've also shared with you option deals, as in land development deals or conversion deals on options, where you don't necessarily need a lot of your own money, but you can get them and make real profits just at the back of the option agreement in and itself. I'll give you an example. Someone approached me, this was a couple of years ago. I've got this piece of land right in the middle of the city center in Birmingham. My planner has said to me that we can get a high rise right in the middle of the Birmingham city center, and I need £500,000 just to get planning. Just to get planning, right? Now, when I looked at the spreadsheet, right, there was an uplift in the value anywhere between £6 to £8 million, right? Because a really high rise. So he was trying to raise the £500,000 just to get planning. Remember, planning gain in and itself is quite high risk, okay? And when he turned up to me, I said, I don't know anyone who's going to pull out £500,000 just to give you to get planning. What if you get nothing? This guy is going to go home with absolutely zero money. So I actually refused to raise money for him, okay? But at the same time, there are times that I would get involved and help you with that, okay? Depending on how much risk there is, okay? In that case, when he was thinking of high rise, yes, there was some chances of getting it, but they were on the lower end, okay? That means it was much higher risk to lose that £500,000, and I didn't want to get involved, okay? When you approach me, and if it is, let's say, a planning uplift deal, and it requires, let's say, £50,000, just for the planning and architects and consultants and so on, unless it's more in the 90% plus percentile of being able to get planning, I'm not going to invest. It's very, very simple, or no one is going to invest. It has to be more in the 90 plus percentile of the chances to get planning in the first place, okay? That's when it's worth risking the money, because the uplift is always very, very high. You know, in some cases, well, in many cases, when you're investing somewhere in the region of 50 grand just for planning, you're talking about an uplift of, you know, roughly about $1 million plus, okay? So you're almost, you know, getting your money 20x back. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's something that I'd look at and say, is it worthwhile playing? Anyway, taking you a step back, I've covered the option deals, I've covered the development and conversion deals for you, I've covered the auction deals for you. What other kinds of deals do you want me to cover within while we are on the call?
Just Jack.
Go on.
Yeah.
Go on now.
Can you do the option deal again, please? Just go run through just step by step, where you put £1 in, you get an option deal sorted, and how would it be successful in terms of stage payments and all that?
Okay, stage payments. Okay, yeah, I know what you mean. Okay. Here's how a option deal works. I'll share a little bit more the depth of it so you can see through. Hi, Michael. So the way it works is, imagine it's a 50-year-old man or a 55-year-old man, okay? The reason I'm sharing that, there is a reason why I'm sharing the age, okay? Because now they're looking to trade at some point from a much bigger house to probably a smaller house or a flat. Does that make sense now? Okay.
Yes.
You need to start observing this. Something like this with a younger person or a younger couple, that may not be the case. They might have bought this big house because they want to live, they want to have their kids grow and so on and so forth. They may not be inclined towards selling you that deal. Does that make sense, right? But while someone whose kids are grown up, they're now out and they're finding their own properties and their own life and so on and so forth, it's a little bit more practical for them to look at it and say, well, now we're living in such a big house, we can't manage it, we can't clean it. Let's go into a smaller house or a flat. Yeah. Okay. Now, when you speak with them and say, well, we see potential in your property, and if, let's say, you sit down with us, we can show you numbers, how they work, and how you can potentially achieve a little more than the market value. Okay. I'm especially talking about larger properties in and around Greater London, which are normally worth $1 million or a little bit more than $1 million. Okay, because those are the ones that you can look at and get multiple flats. Okay, so let's say the purchase price is $1 million, right? You turn up to the guy and say, well, look, I can pay you, the market value is $1 million. If you put it on the market, you're likely statistically going to achieve 950. Okay, there are stats out there that will tell you that properties that price sell for 4-point-something% less, so about 5% less than the asking price or the market value. So they're only going to get 950. Okay, so they're going to get 5% less than whatever the market value is. So it's, let's say, 1.2 million, then that will be 60 grand less than the asking or the market value. So they're going to get 5% less. Let's keep it million for now so you have clear understanding. You turn up to the guy and say, well, I can pay you potentially 1.1 million. They can get now, they start thinking, we can get 150 grand more than what we'll potentially get. Okay. However, this 1.1 million is based on subject to planning. Does that make sense? Okay. And when they speak with a solicitor, it's basically an option agreement which states that if, let's say, we get a planning on this, that they will get 1.1 million, but if we don't, that they don't get anything, and then each party can exit this after 24 months. Does that make sense? Okay, so everyone is tied up into this, as in the seller and the buyer of the option for 24 months. It's a registered option agreement. With this gets registered on the title of the property, which means that the landlord can't sell the property without your permission, without your signature. Remember, if you ever do an option agreement without a registered option, which is a form called RX something, you get planning permission on it. You push the value up to 1.5 million, and this guy can go and sell the property without your approval. And the only person who loses is step. Once you do that, you've only paid £1 for it. Does that make sense? You only paid £1 and legals and nothing else. Then you go and apply for planning permission. Let's say you get planning permission for 7, 8, 9 flats, whatever that might be. You push the value by, let's say, $500,000. That's exactly the case in most cases in and around London. Okay? Purely because if, let's say, you get 8 flats and each flat is worth, let's say, 400 to 500, right? You've pushed the GDV from anywhere between 4 million to 5 million, right? Your land is now, let's say, worth 1.5, 1.6 million or 1.7 million. Your build cost in that case is, let's say, 8 flats. Each of them costs you 200, 1.6 million. Your land is worth 1.6 million. That's 3.2 million. Your GDV is almost 5 million. Okay, so you've got enough profits for the builder. There's enough profits for the professional fee. There's enough profits for the finance cost. So there's enough profits to pay for the finance, to pay for the professional fees, to pay the investors involved, and still be enough profits for the builder or the developer as well, whosoever you will sell it to, the option agreement. Does that make sense? Okay. But let's say you don't develop it yourself and you sell the option. You can go and sell it for 1.6, 1.7 million. You can pay the landlord 1.1 million. He gets enough time while you apply for planning to look for another smaller house. He gets 150 grand more and everyone wins in the picture. Raise your hand. Okay. This is what your average deal will look like in and around London with a really large big plot, somewhere in the region of 1,000 square meter or bigger. Okay, to give you an indication. Now, does that give you clarity?
Yes. Yeah, it's reinforced what I was a little bit in grey areas. So thank you.
All right. Okay, that's how they're structured. Okay. Let me share with you something a bit more behind the scenes so you can see through, okay? Let's say you come across a standard property. Let's say its market value is 300 grand, okay? And you're getting it for 250. Not huge discount on a 300 grand, 50 grand is not even 20%, okay? You turn up to me and say, well, Jack, you know what? There's 50 grand discount. I want to buy this property. I can use it for serviced accommodation and I can make some real profits at the back of it, okay? Fine, good. You come to me and you turn up and say, well, I've only got 30 grand of my own money, okay? Or let's say 25 grand, just for the sake of understanding. Let's say I've only got 10% of my own money, 25 grand, and I don't have any more. In that case, I can help you raise some money. So because it's, let's say, just shy of 20% discounted, you can get away with 20% deposit. You've got 10% deposit. I can help you raise the 10% deposit. We can buy the property 50-50, and then we can put it on serviced accommodation, enjoy the profits at the back of that. Does that make sense? And then we can refinance later on normal market value, pull out the 50 grand that we already have saved day one, buying it below market value. That will potentially help us pull out most of our own money and still enjoy the profits at the back of that of serviced accommodation. Does that make sense? Let me give you another example. Let's say now you turn up and say, I have found a property that's worth £1 million. I'm getting 30% discount. I'm getting it at 700 grand. And how can we structure a deal like this? In that case, we only need 10% of the money to buy a deal if it is 30% discounted on the market value. So in that case, you only need 70 grand of your own money. You need stamp duty, obviously, on £1 million. The stamp duty is like just shy of 50 grand. So we need about 120 grand, 70 plus the 50 stamp duty, 150 odd grand to buy a deal like this. We buy it, we use it for serviced accommodation while we wait to refinance on the market value, pull out all of our money and more, and then still keep the deal for serviced accommodation. Raise your hand if you see where I'm going with this. Okay, so on a deal that is 30% discounted, you only need 10% deposit to buy a deal like this. Okay, plus always remember the stamp duty because it's pretty high these days. Okay, that's almost 5% these days. So you need about 10 plus 5%, which is roughly about 12% all in all. Okay.
Jack.
No. So no. 10% plus 5% all in all about 15%. Yeah. Go ahead.
Jack. Just a question. When you're talking about market value, from your experience, what is the best way to figure out or calculate the market value? Because I mean, I know you talk to maybe you're looking at a property, you inquire with some estate agents. They're always going to give you the top end of everything.
Yeah. What is the
from
best
your experience
way to work out the market value? Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good question, Ahmed. Okay. So first of all, you need to do all the exercises. You need to call at least 3 or more estate agents, get them to give you a valuation. You need to check online. You need to check online in depth, as in really the intimate knowledge of the region, down to per square foot of the most closest comparable that you have. Okay. Now, I'll tell you what I mean by the closest comparable. In UK, unfortunately, you can have prices go up and down about 20-30%, even if you go from one street to the other. Okay. So you have to be very careful looking at the closest comparable. And if you can't find the closest comparable, then it's your intimate knowledge of the region. Okay. Do not compare it. If let's say you are in a council estate and you're looking at prices next road, which is 30% more in value, that's not a good comparable, guys, right? You need to have intimate knowledge of the region, Ahmed. I say this all the time. If you don't have intimate knowledge, you are going to lose out every single time. I've seen enough people burning themselves, and I mean really burning themselves, going bankrupt just because they did not have the intimate knowledge and they paid prices for the posh side rather than and then buying properties on the wrong side of the street. Okay, so intimate knowledge, at the same time the closest comparable, at the same time speaking with the local estate agents. And where does the intimate knowledge come from, Ahmed? By doing viewings. Go and do random viewings, guys. Right? Go and do random. Pick up the phone, call an estate agent and say, look, I'm looking to buy this property. Can you show it to me? Go and view 20, 30, 40 properties, guys. Right? How long does it take to view 10 properties? A single day. I'll give you an example, okay? In a town of 860 hotels, I have viewed more than 100 hotels before I decided to buy them. More than 100, guys. That's more than 10% of the stock of the town. I walk around and every single street I have viewed some hotel. Every single street, every single corner, I've viewed a hotel. I've either viewed or stayed in the hotel myself. Okay? That's how much intimate knowledge you gotta have. To take you a little bit about the story, right? Back and forth about 8 months, I was going back and forth from London to Blackpool for 8 months. My wife got so frustrated saying, when are you actually going to close a deal? I've shared this previously, haven't I? Okay. She got frustrated. And when I started closing, I closed 4 hotel deals in 12 months. I wanted to have intimate knowledge of the region before I start investing my really hard-earned money, guys. Okay. I am an immigrant. Okay. I want to make sure that I'm not really going in the wrong direction. So intimate knowledge is the most important thing. And that happens not by just sitting around with a laptop. It happens by physically visiting the sites, viewing the sites, meeting the landlords, speaking with the estate agents, right? Do not just listen to an estate agent. They want to achieve higher prices. They normally tend to give you higher prices, especially Foxtons, right? They will tell you anything that you want to hear as long as they can get the business, okay? Sales is a bit more realistic, okay? So I hope that answers your question, Ahmed, okay?
Yes.
Yes, it does. Now, Jack, if I can also bother you with another question, just going back to the lease options.
Yeah.
Now, how do you approach, a landlord or the seller, to present the lease option, especially if it's somebody that maybe is not familiar or is not, very well versed in such a structure, how can you present it in a way, or from your experience, how do you present it in a way that it's easy for them to grasp and not think that it's some kind of a scam or something?
So go back to the grow model. Okay? The first aim is not to tell the person. Remember, you're jumping onto the opportunity of the grow model too fast. Your first aim is to understand who the person is and what do they want. What do they want, right? Once you understand what they want, what is their reality as in where they are in the journey, what is their goals, what do they want to achieve, then presenting opportunity becomes a lot more easier, okay? If I take you a step back, if they know nothing about property, that's where the deals are. Remember, profits are when the person you're speaking with me knows nothing or knows very, very little. If they already know quite a bit, right, the likely is you're not easily going to close a deal. That's going to be a tough deal, okay? If let's say the person even knows everything, let's say knows everything about planning, but is just really busy with his work and is some sort of C-level executive or corporate in a company, absolutely no time, there's still a deal there. There's still a deal because he has no time. The guy's probably making $500,000 there. He doesn't care if you're going to make $500,000 from his own property. Okay? Especially when he's never done it, knows about it, but he's never done it. Does that make sense? Okay? So at the same time, your approach needs to be based on the grow model, understanding what is it that they want in the first place. Okay? It's like questions like, where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 years' time? And if it's a 55, 60-year-old man, they don't want to see themselves in a bigger house with a bigger mortgage. They want to see themselves in a smaller house with a smaller mortgage. Does that make sense? Okay. If let's say a young couple, okay, and they're on this journey of buying a smaller property, then they bought a bigger property. Now they want to buy a much bigger property than this, and they can see you giving them 15% more than what they can achieve. Remember that, going back to when I said they're going to achieve 5% less and you're going to pay them 10% more. They see you paying them 15% more than what they can achieve. All of a sudden they start thinking, well, with that 15%, we can go and buy a bigger property with zero of our own money. Does that make sense? So you need to take this option agreement based on what's in it for them. Does that make sense? Okay. Remember, when you're speaking with someone, you shouldn't be thinking what's in it for you. That you should really pre-work out from your appraisal. You should really be thinking about what's in it for them, because you're not going to close a deal if there's nothing in it for them. Okay. So your approach needs to be based on, okay, this is what's in it for you. Does that make sense? And helping them understand the option agreement, you don't need to. You just tell them, look, it's what you call delayed completion. We will complete this deal 24 months later. Okay. This time will allow us to achieve the full potential of the site. Okay. And it's just a legal agreement that your solicitor will send you. That's all. You don't need to explain any further. That's all there is. Because within the option agreement, all it says is it gets registered on the title and they have the option to buy or not, subject to planning. That's all it says. Okay. At the same time, one tricky thing within that agreement is, if let's say you want to develop or you sell the option and the other person wants to develop without buying the property, then the funding gets done on the name of the landlord, which can be very tricky bit. Does that make sense? And many landlords won't agree to that. This is something that gets negotiated on the table. So if that's the case, then you can't develop the site without actually buying it. Does that make sense? You can apply for planning, get the planning, sell the option, but it doesn't become a landlord-assisted development. Does that make sense? There's an option for that as well within the option agreement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could also use the option agreement if, say, if you wanted to develop, let's say the cost to develop, you have the cash, or maybe you have an investor that is willing to join with you to cover the cost to do the conversion or the development. Then you could still utilize the option. I mean, you're not getting like a traditional finance from any bank just to do the uplift.
So you need to no. So remember, there's two different sets here, right? One is raising funding, as in money for development, before exercising the option. In that case, the funding gets raised on the property, which is not owned by you, it's owned by the landlord. So that becomes vendor-assisted finance. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about if, say, the cost, to do the uplift or the development, say it's not that great. Let's just say, for example, it's £200,000, and let's say, for example, I have 100, and I find somebody else that has 100, and we'll split the profits. So we have the money. We could still utilize the option agreement, do the development, and then exercise the option after we've completed the build out.
Sorry, Ahmed, it was breaking. I couldn't hear you.
Say, the cost to do the development, the build out, you have the planning and all that, and you just need, say, 200,000 to do the build out. Let's say, for example, I have the 100, and I find another partner that brings in the 100. We'll split the profits.
Yeah.
We could still work under the option agreement to do the build out, and then.
So in that case, so that's exactly what I'm saying, Ahmed. In that case, remember, that becomes vendor-assisted finance. You can't raise finance on your name. It has to be, the finance gets raised on the site, as in the asset. The asset is
No,
not on your name.
I'm talking about you have an option agreement.
Yeah.
But then you do the planning and you want to do the development. Can you do the development? Say you have the cash to do the build out. You don't need to get the borrow.
No, you can't. No, you can't. No. Let me take you a step back so you can see through. Okay. Remember, if you want to now develop the site, okay, for you to develop the site, you need development money, right? Development money you can't raise. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying if you have the development money, you're not
raising have all the development money. You have all the development money.
Yes.
In that case, yes, you can go ahead and develop. Yeah, if you have all the money and you don't need any debt, you can go and develop. And then you can sell the project, and then that's you exercising the option. That's fine. But that's not in most cases, Ahmed.
Yeah.
The examples that I'm giving you, the purchase price, as in the purchase price of the option is somewhere in the region of 1.1 million.
Yeah.
The development cost is going to be somewhere in the region of 2 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so people are not sitting on £2 million cash. They want to raise debt funding. Okay, in that case, now the purchase is, let's say, 1.1 million. You need 2 million to do the development. That's 3 million plus. Okay, so for you to be able to now develop the site, if let's say you have vendor assisted finance, you don't have to buy the site yet. You can work on the option, which goes into the agreement as a separate segment. It can be agreed. Okay. In that case, the landlord is probably going to turn up and say, well, I don't want 1.1 million, I want 1.2 million, because now he doesn't want the slight bit in uplift in the value. He wants to uplift the value from the development side as well. He's probably going to turn up and say, well, I want not 1.2 million, but I will give you the vendor assisted finance, as in you don't have to buy the site and you pay me once the development is done when you take an exit. But then you can go and raise funding on the site on the name of the landlord and then develop it. And you only need, just the cash flow money, because you can raise 100% development funding in full, 100%. So you only need your cash flow because you get paid at the back of your invoices. So if let's say you are spending 100 grand as a cash flow, you send those invoices to the lender and the lender sends you money afterwards. So you need cash flow money, which in normally cases on a project like this is anywhere between 200 to 300 grand. Okay. But if let's say if it's not vendor assisted finance, in that case, then you need to be buying the site first, which you need 35% deposit for. And then once you buy the site, in this case, let's say it's 1.1 million, you need 35% of that, which is roughly about 385 grand or 380 odd grand. And then you need another 2 million for the development, which you can get in full from a lender, right? So you need about 450 odd grand just to get going. No, well, not even 450, more like 500 grand to get going, because you need, let's say 385 or something for that. You need stamp duty, you need cash flow, probably more than 500, you need about 600. You need cash flow money, but the rest you can borrow. So let's say it's a 3 million pound project, you need about 600 grand, and we can get you the 2.4 million. Let's say it's a good deal. Let's say the profits are over 25-30%. In that case, you come to me, I can help you raise some equity. You may only need 50, 100 grand. Okay, raise your hand if you can see where I'm going with this. Yeah, remember, if you are coming to with me with zero of your own money, but a really good deal, the likely is that you will be an employee of that project and that you will get sourcing fee and maybe some profits, very tiny, probably more in the region of 5 to 10%. Okay, does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yeah.
Okay. With any type of deal, whether you want to planning uplift or whatever, any type of deals at all,
yeah,
you need a motivated seller, right?
Not really, no.
Why not?
Yeah, Grace, you don't necessarily need motivated sellers. Remember, guys, you're being sold some crappy shit, okay? Yes, there are motivated sellers out there, but motivated sellers are those that are dealing with some emergency in their life, okay?
So
why
would
very few and far between.
Okay, so why would I want
Grace,
to
the sheet that you have,
why would I want to give a delay completion or an auction agreement if I'm not motivated, if I'm not, why would I want to do that?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I will tell you the distinction between motivated sellers and your leads that you have in your sheet, guys. A motivated seller, Grace, I'm going to answer your question in depth, okay, so you have clarity. A motivated seller is someone who has an emergency in their life. Either they are going through a divorce, either they're going through ill health of themselves or some family member, okay? Either it is a probate, okay? It has to be some sort of emergency in their life, or let's say they've been proposed a job abroad and they're getting double the money that they're getting here, okay? And now, but they have to leave immediately and they can't control the sale because they're not in the country, okay? In that case, you will get 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35% discount. That's what you call a motivated seller. The leads that you have, that you get from us, are not motivated sellers, guys. The reason they will give you an option agreement is because you're going to pay them more than the market value. Because you are going to make money on that deal a lot more than what you will pay them. Raise your hand if you see what I'm talking about.
1 second, before you go further.
No, I'm not. Yeah.
Before you go further, sorry. So, this is just based on what you just said now. So, why would I want to give you my property if I can put it online and get a market value? Remember, it's my property.
Yeah.
Hold on, sorry. Remember, it's my property, and
yes.
I am thinking more about, getting more for it. Yeah.
Yeah, very good question. Very good question, Grace. Okay.
You understand?
Let's say your property is worth £1 million. Let's say your property is worth £1 million.
My property is worth £1 million.
Yeah.
So why would you want to approach me?
Yeah.
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 And sell it for more than 100 million when I can sell it on the market? Remember, you said also this morning that everybody with a property thinks that they can get more, even more than what is on the market. You understand? So on the flip side of that, why would I want to give it to you?
Okay, Grace, that's exactly what I answered earlier. I will answer it again for you. When you have £1 million property, it is statistically proven online. You can go and check this information online. When you have £1 million property, it is market value £1 million. You take it to the market, you're likely going to achieve only 950 for it. You will get 5% less than the normal market value. You can check these stats online. Okay? So when I approach you now and I say I'm going to pay you 1.1 million, that's 15% more than what you will achieve in the market. 15%, because you're going to get 5% less than the market value when you put it on the market, and I'm going to give you 10% more than the asking price. Okay? Because I am making money from that deal, I'm sharing a part of that with you. Does that make sense? Okay? So you are getting 150 grand more. You can take that money into the market and buy a bigger house or a smaller, or pay off your mortgage, make it easy for you. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, remember, you will find out this in the GROW model before you even propose. And that's your negotiation tactics and tools. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, so, Grace, 150 grand more than what they will achieve in the market means that they can either, if let's say they're looking to downgrade, let's say they have $500,000 in mortgage, they're going to not have $500,000 mortgage, they're getting 150 grand more. Now it goes down to 350.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or if they're looking to upgrade, that they can go and now same money that they have, 150 grand more than what they would have achieved, and go and buy a bigger property. Does that make sense?
Yes, Jack, that makes sense. Now,
okay.
Another question, almost related to that.
Yeah.
Why can I not get the same thing on auction? In auction,
you will not get it. Why would someone pay you in auction? Okay, why do people go to auctions?
They're desperate. Desperation?
No, why do people go to auctions to buy?
To buy, or to get a better deal.
Okay, so cheaper properties, right? Less than the
Cheaper
market
property.
value. Less than market value. So if you put $1 million property on auction, what are you going to achieve for it?
Okay, so yeah, I understand that. And again, Jack, on the flip side, we are looking for opportunity, right? And you said a few times that don't go auction or don't go to auction unless you're know what you're looking for. Your experience. Yeah. Why can't we get the experience and buy and get the same thing in auction?
Sorry, I'm not sure about your question.
Yeah, so why did you say don't go to auction? Why did you tell us not to go to auction?
Because if you don't have experience of buying in auction, you're going to burn yourself out and go bankrupt. Okay, why does someone sell in auction, Grace? Tell me. Why do people sell in auction?
I think, in my opinion, I think it's two reasons.
Go on.
To get their properties,
sold quickly.
So quickly, and plus to catch people like us out who is inexperienced, maybe, I don't know.
Okay, I'll tell you why people sell in auctions. Either they can't sell, or there's something wrong with the property.
Hello, hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Funny.
Hello?
Still don't stop.
Hello, is it me? Oh,
it's like he's gone. He's gone.
Okay, it's his side.
And they can't fix it.
There he is.
Oh, Jack, we lost you. We all lost you there. We lost you there for a minute.
There's some structural issue with the property. Are you everyone here?
Yeah, we kind of lost you for a minute there.
Yeah, I think it just broke, the whole signal broke. So let's say you're in auction, and the reason you go to auction is because you can't sell your property, Grace.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you go to auction? Okay. And when someone can't sell, there's something wrong with the property. You go in, you have no experience, you buy something that's not worth what you just paid for it. Okay. And the people who benefit from auction are the ones who have experience and can fix problems cheaper and easily than you can. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Ahmed, any questions? Nav, any questions?
No.
Michael, any questions?
No questions.
No, it's okay.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Is everyone clear on creative ways to finance deals? I've shared everything. Like, you can go and buy a below market value property, 20% discounted. You may only need about 20%. If it is 30% discounted, you may only need 10% plus the 5% stamp duty. If it is let's say an option agreement, I've shared quite a bit of detail of that. If it is a conversion deal, development deal, similar numbers, I've shared them with you as well. If you buy from auction as well, you can get 65% in loan, depending on, so on and so forth, multiple factors. I will personally not get involved into auction purely because there's way too many sharks with loads of cash sitting around and they can beat you very, very easily. I will not get involved. So there's many different ways to buy deals. Let's say you come across someone within your network, the guy is going through a divorce, and says, I really want to sell this property quickly and get my cash out and pay the missus so I don't have to see her again, or be able to see my husband or not see him again or whatever, right? You get, let's say, 30% discount from them on the market value. You only need 10% of your own money plus the 5% stamp duty. So within 10% plus the 5%, 15%, you can buy something that's 30% discounted, go back and refinance, pull out all of your own money and more, and still have that property that you can use for serviced accommodation and make regular money for the rest of your life. Okay? These are very good small tricks and tactics that you can use. Initially, I shared with you some of the deals that I have done personally, where just because I've sourced the deal, I've taken a sourcing fee in the form of share value that you can structure. The way the deals get structured is, like, you'll be surprised, you can structure a £100 million deal only if you have maybe like 100 grand, as long as you know how to do it. Like, I will pay you 100 grand today. You go and sign the deal, right? The guy says, I don't want to sign an option on £1, pay me 100 grand. You go and give this guy 100 grand. The deal is worth 10 million, 20 million, 50 million. You pay him the rest at the back of it. Remember, we are in the game of achieving the full potential of the land that we are looking at. Does that make sense? Okay. So either you have a house on it, either it's a block of flats, either it is just a piece of land and nothing on it. We are in the game of achieving the potential of the site, the land. Okay. And if it's, let's say, a conversion deal, let's say it's an office block, let's say it's got 2 floors and you can get permission for another 1 or 2 floors. We are helping achieve the potential of that site and gaining just the uplift in the value that we bring in terms of money. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right, guys. I would say go back and watch this session again, because I've shared a lot of things in this session, and I know I speak fast. That's probably the slowest I speak. I speak faster than this sometimes. Okay? So you may want to go back and watch this session again, purely because I feel you will look back and think, that is amazing, like the way the deals are structured. You can easily look at any deal and structure it in your favor, making loads and loads of money over a sustained period of time. Okay? So that's today's session. Let me stop recording.